Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight, and of course I compliment the Coweta County Republican Party for hosting this, and it's my privilege. I'm Bubba. It's a good week to be a Bubba, and Bubba McDonald, and I live in Habersham County, and my wife Shelley is with us here tonight. But I've enjoyed service on the Georgia Public Service Commission. It's a very, very distinct honor to do that. It's a great challenge and a great responsibility. One of the nice things that we employ now is the fact that we are 15% below the national average in our electricity rates. We also lead the nation in pipeline safety programs. We are in the top 5 states in the nation with our pipeline safety, and through the efforts of the Commission and the Atlanta Gas Light Company, we've replaced all the cast iron pipe in the state, and now we are removing some of the older plastic pipes. These are all safety features that involve people in our state, and I could take you about other states in the nation that are far behind. I talked to my colleagues across the country, especially in New Jersey, and they say we just kick the can down the road and we don't move on it. I'm also delighted to report to you tonight that Georgia leads the nation as we speak today in solar development. We lead the nation. Just in the past 12 months, we have employed 2,600 new jobs in the solar industry in Georgia. And when you look at what can come from that is the fact that Georgia is fortunate being one of the 13 original colonies. We're the largest landmass east of the Mississippi River. And if we use 15% of the landmass that we have in Georgia using the electrons from the sun, that equates to 1,300,000 gallons of oil per year. And if you put the pencil to that with oil at $104 a barrel right now, and I said gallons, I meant barrels, 2.3 million barrels, that equates to the 104. You can put the economic impact that we have the ability to attract. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got good utilities. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the utilities that we regulate. We also have a responsibility to the consumers of Georgia, making sure that, number one, they have an affordable energy. Number two, that they have reliable energy. And the third is they have clean energy. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight, and I look forward to your questions.
My name is Craig Lutz, and I'm excited to be here. This is the first time that we've had an opportunity as a group to get together and share ideas, and so I'm looking forward to speaking as much as I am to listening tonight. I'd like to start by thanking the Coweta County Republican Party for putting this on. You guys reached out early. It's been, I can speak for myself, sometimes difficult to get into some party areas, but this one's been very inviting and very open and welcoming, and I want to thank you all very much for that. I'd like to thank my wife of 24 years, my youngest daughter, Sierra. You can wave, Sierra. To making the trip down. The benefit of having them with me today is I got to take the HOV lane through Atlanta. So, but there are a lot of benefits of having family here. I'm running for this office because I feel like I'm the most qualified person to be the county on the Public Service Commission. I am a military veteran, veteran of the United States Air Force. In the Air Force, I was in HF communications, microwave and satellite communications. Also did power generation and distribution. After an honorable discharge from the Air Force, I worked for Bell South AT&T for 16 years. I was in one of the groups that helped deregulate our portion of the business. That's when I first had an opportunity to work with some of the staff at the PSC. And from that time, I've been very interested in what that particular body does for Georgia. It has a major impact, and most of us don't know about it. It has a very large and very significant impact. So as I became interested, I decided I would get involved into politics, and I ran. I was a city councilman in Flowery Branch. I'm currently a county commissioner in Hall County. So public service has been a very energizing aspect of my life, something that I have been very pleased that my constituents have allowed me to do, to serve them. I'd like the opportunity to serve the state on the Public Service Commission because I see where I can fit in and apply great ideas. Unfortunately, I feel like the Public Service Commission has been working on the wrong side of the equation. We don't have a supply problem in Georgia with power. Supply has not been the issue. We actually have a surplus of power in Georgia. And you would think that in a competitive market, if you increase surplus or increase the supply of power and the demand stays the same, the price goes down. And that's true. But this isn't a competitive market. This is a monopoly. So if you increase supply and the demand stays the same, the price just goes up. And the price of the product that we're adding, specifically solar in this case, the 525 megawatt mandate that the PSC put on Georgia Power last year, that power is twice as expensive as what we're producing today. So I come to the table here with what I consider ideas. I believe in green power, but I believe in finding green fuel, waste-to-energy solutions, landfill gas reclamation solutions, biomass solutions, solutions that we can use to keep the fuel price in Georgia down, solutions that we can use that go into the existing infrastructure that's already bought and paid for. I come to the commission, hopefully, if elected by you all, with the mindset that we can keep our power lower. Granted, the commissioner's right. We are fortunate to have very affordable rates in Georgia, but they are still 27% higher today than they were in the year 2000. And fuel, specifically natural gas, is at a record low. So fuel prices have gone down, but somehow our electric prices have gone up. And once again, I just want to thank everybody and say I look forward to answering your questions.
Thanks, Greg. My name's Doug Kidd, and I do want to thank you all for inviting me out tonight, inviting all of us out tonight. To tell you a little bit about myself, I'm originally from Henry County, Georgia. Grew up there. Graduated from Eagles Landing High School in 1999. Left down there, went to Statesboro to Georgia Southern University, where I majored in journalism. I met my wife, Beth. Graduated from there and went up to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I worked for the Times Free Press newspaper as a copy editor and page designer. Worked up there for about 2.5 years before I realized that the state of the newspaper industry was not very good and that it was going downhill, so I decided to look for another job career, so I decided to go to law school. My wife and I, we got married in 2004, and we left down in 2005 to St. Petersburg, Florida, where I went to Stetson University College of Law. Spent 3 years down there. Graduated law school in 2008. My wife said, please take me out of here and take me back to Georgia. So what I decided to do then was come back to Georgia and study for the bar exam. So I took the bar exam in July of 2008. And what many of y'all may not know is they make law students wait a really long time to get those bar results back, 3 whole months. So for those 3 whole months, I was sweating it out with student loan payments building up and my wife wondering if I was ever going to get a job. But fortunately, I was able to get my bar results back in October 31st of 2008, and I passed, which was a good thing. But the bad thing was, if you'll recall what was happening in October of 2008, was the entire economy was crashing. Not just the legal market, but the entire job market was bad. There were no jobs to be had. So what I decided to do was open up my own law firm in my wife's hometown of Livonia, Georgia, up in Franklin County in the northeastern part of this state. I started out in a small rented room in an old house. It was a 12 by 12 office. It was just me. I answered my own phone calls, typed my own letters, and went to court myself. But over time, over the past 6 years, I've been fortunate enough to build my business up to where now I have another attorney in my law firm, a couple of paralegals, and an intern and an investigator. I even own my own building now, a 3,000 square foot building, a historic building that we've renovated. So I'm pretty happy with the way I've built my business. And if any of y'all are small businessmen like me, you know at the end of the month you do your payroll and you do your bills and you basically look at everything that you've paid out over the previous month. And what I noticed in my Georgia Power bill was that no matter how much I tried to conserve or keep the heat low, my bill got higher and higher and higher. So I went online, did a little bit of research, and I noticed that Georgia Power had been the beneficiary of 4 rate increases over the past 4 years. Our Public Service Commission had approved every one of those rate increases over the past 4 years. And I looked at my commissioners and I saw that pretty much it was a 5-0 vote. There didn't seem to be anybody on the consumer side. It seemed like all 5 of them tilted towards the utilities, and I decided to do something about that. So I threw my hat in the ring in December of this year, and so far I've been touring Georgia, and I've been to 105 counties. And what I've seen so far, across the board, 99% practically, is that people are very, very upset with their power bill. Doesn't matter if it's municipal, REA, or Georgia Power. People are hurting. Small businesses can't make their payroll because they're paying more for their Georgia Power bill, they're paying more for their health insurance, they're paying more for everything across the board. And the thing is, a lot of these things that are going up are not going up because of market forces, they're going up because of government forces, government regulations, commissions that see no problem with raising rates on their consumers. It's the Public Service Commission, not the Utility Commission. And that's what I'd like to bring to the commission, is somebody that looks out after consumers and ratepayers first, not the utilities. So I think the first thing that I would do is I would like to see a rate decrease. I think it's time for a rate cut. Georgia Power is guaranteed by law to have a return on equity of 10.95%. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I would love to be able to have a profit margin of 11% every year, no matter how good of a service I provide to my customers or not. In fact, that 10.95% is the second highest rate of any utility in the Southeast. I think there's a room there to cut that and in turn cut the rates of Georgia Power customers. The second thing that I'd like to see on the commission is some ethics reform. I think it's important that our commissioners be able to set rates and be able to manage the commission without being taken to dinners and golf outings and other trips by lobbyists. I don't think it's necessary. Last year, the state legislature passed a cap on lobbyist expenditures for the legislature. That was a good start. I think it was a $75 cap. But I don't think we should cap expenditures. I think we should ban them. And I think the PSC has it within their right to require its members not to go out to dinner, not to go out for golf outings, not to go out for out-of-state trips with lobbyists. If you want to meet with a lobbyist, that's fine. They can do so at the office in Atlanta. And that's what I'd like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to our first question of the evening, which was touched on in the opening statements. How can the Public Service Commission help Georgia take advantage of the natural gas surplus due to fracking?
As I mentioned, natural gas is at its lowest rate in over 20-something years, but it is volatile. And I think we have currently converted a couple of coal plants to natural gas, and unfortunately we're closing down a couple of additional coal plants which could probably be used for natural gas. I would suggest, however, that what goes down can also go up, and there's quite a bit of volatility in that market. My solution is to add a Georgian supply, because we don't have natural gas as a energy source in our own state, but add our own supply of energy that will allow us to that we can use for natural gas. University of Georgia did a study in 2007 that said there were 10 things that we grow here today in Georgia that would give us the energy we need that is cheaper than natural gas was in 2007. As it is today, those 10 things are still cheaper than what the current spot price is for natural gas today. So we can augment not only our supply, but certainly take advantage of what we have out there, and getting natural gas pipeline down to us and put into our plants, convert our coal plants, I think is the right thing to do.
I think Mr. Lutz is correct when he said that prices that may be low today may not be low tomorrow. And in fact, I think if any of y'all have turned on your radio or TV lately, you've heard plenty of spots from Georgia Power talking about how we have the lowest, or our energy rates are lower than the national average. That's actually true. And it's true for basically one reason. Georgia Power, as a share of its percentage that it gets from natural gas, is higher. I think they get 18% of their total fuel market from natural gas. That's higher than most of the other utilities in the Southeast. Most other utilities in the Southeast get about 14 or 13% of their entire portfolio from natural gas. So right now, with natural gas prices as low as they are compared to all the other fuels, Georgia Power is in a good position. But as Mr. Lutz pointed out, if that price actually goes up, Georgia Power is going to be in a bad position because they've staked out a higher percentage of their fuel portfolio in natural gas. But no, I'm actually an all of the above kind of guy. I think natural gas is important. I think nuclear is important. I think solar is important. And obviously, I think coal is the most important. Unfortunately, we have a federal government that's waged a war on coal. I think we need to all pretty much get on board to put pressure on our federal government to allow coal to be used. It's cheap, plentiful, and proven. We've used it for more than 100 years for our electricity needs, and I'm a big supporter of coal.
Natural gas is a commodity. 9 years ago, natural gas was $10 to $12 a decatherm on the Henry Hub. 6 months ago, natural gas was $3 to $4 a decatherm on the Henry Hub. 2 months ago, natural gas was $5 to $6 a decatherm, and it is that today. We had the coldest winter on record here in the state of Georgia. Natural gas is a commodity. Supply and demand set the price of a commodity, whether it's lumber, coal, natural gas, whatever. So we can anticipate, because of horizontal drilling, that natural gas prices will stabilize in the next 6 months as we go into the summer season. Then as far as converting a decommissioned coal plant that's 50 years old in the state of Georgia, and we've got some 12 on the line to do that with, you can't convert them all to combined cycle natural gas. Number one, you can't run them on a 3/4 inch gas line. It takes a 24 inch to 36 inch gas line to run a combined cycle gas-fired generation system. To get a line to the coal plant that's being decommissioned, you got to go through all the environmental impact studies, you got to go through land acquisitions, you got to go through eminent domain. And so there are reasons why we can't do conversions like we would like to do. We can't afford to. You as a consumer can't afford to pay that. The last thing is that we have made conversions, and they are working, and we do have capacity, but we have reliability too. And when you talk about an industry coming to our state, the first question they want to know is, what are my energy costs and what is my energy reliability?
Our next question is related to the composition of the board. Currently, the board members are required by law to live in one of 5 districts divided around the state. However, the districts, you are elected at large, statewide. Would you favor dividing the districts similar to a congressman, perhaps 14 districts, one for each congressional district, and having an elected state chairman of the PSC elected at large? In other words, would you support, instead of at large, being elected by district?
No, I would not, actually. I believe that the current setup is probably the best setup that we have. In fact, the type of setup that you're talking about was actually implemented in the 90s and previously. And what you saw is all 5 commissioners were pretty much from Metro Atlanta. And the rest of the state was pretty much blocked off from any say-so in the Public Service Commission. So I'm in favor of having 5 separate districts, but having each commissioner run statewide. And because while I've been campaigning in 105 counties, what I have noticed is everybody south of Macon says nobody comes down here anymore. They may come down here for a quail hunt or for a fundraiser or for a barbecue, but they don't come down here and actually ask us what our needs are. I think some of us up here north of Macon are kind of insulated from that. We see our politicians all the time. But south of Macon, we need to actually campaign and actually hear their needs down there. So no, I'm in favor of keeping it as it is and having people run statewide.
I think the process that we have today is correct. I think that people in Coweta County is just as interested in how I vote as a commissioner from District 4 on utility rates as somebody that lives in my next door neighborhood. I also think that people in Thomas County need to have an understanding of what's happening as we provide a new generation plant in our state. They need to have that right to hear from an elected commissioner. And you know, we have 6-year terms of office, and there are two commissioners running this year, one 2 years from now and 2 4 years from now. So we have a continuation of information and that at the commission. Everybody's not gone at the same time. It was spoken about in the 90s. In the 90s, there was Jim Hammock from Dublin, Georgia, commissioner. Had Bobby Rohan from Enigma, Georgia. And if y'all know where they are, they're south of here. Mac Barber from Commerce, Georgia. And then, yes, we had commissioner there in Atlanta, Bobby Pafford. But they were from all over the state of Georgia. They weren't just in Atlanta. But demographics have changed. The population has changed, and the population growth has been in the 13 surrounding areas, basically in the metropolitan area. We got a good system working now. Keep it that way. I need to be responsible to you just as much as I am to my next door neighbor.
I've had an opportunity to work in both systems. As a city councilman in Flowery Branch, it was an at-large type seat. As a county commissioner, I'm elected by my constituents in South Hall County. There are pros and cons to both. If you go to a districting system where you're elected strictly within your district, it certainly becomes a much more inexpensive type campaign, and I think it allows more people the ability to run. But as my two opponents have said, energy is such an important issue. The fact is, people in Noonan, Georgia should have a say as often as they can in our energy direction. And so I agree that a statewide race is the best way to go with people living within their districts. Whether we should go to 4 districts with an at-large commissioner, unfortunately, we kind of have that system up in Hall County today. With a commissioner that's voted at large that we call the chairman. Unfortunately, what it does is it could still put 2/5 of the power in one area, and whoever has the largest voting block, frankly. So I think we're okay with the system we have going right now, and I would recommend keeping it.
Our next question is, how can the Public Service Commission help rein in the federal government's failure to pick up the nuclear waste at our plant sites in Georgia?
The federal government made a contract with the 104 at that time nuclear facilities throughout the nation. In 1987, they entered into a contract that they were going to take the nuclear waste. There's 14 cents on every ratepayer of electricity in Georgia today that goes into the nuclear waste fund. This commission, your Public Service Commission, just 4 weeks ago passed a resolution to our members of Congress asking what they're going to do about the nuclear waste program. We have Yucca Mountain that Harry Reid has blocked as a United States Senator, and that is not a repository, but it's passed all the smell tests, all the science tests to be a repository for nuclear waste. Congress has got to get off there and make something happen if we're going to do that. That money that you and I as ratepayers is not in an escrow account up there. You can't find it. It's not up there. But fortunately, the federal courts, the Washington Circuit, ruled 2 months ago that the Department of Energy has to stop collecting the nuclear waste funds.
First, let me start by commending the resolution that the Public Service Commission sent out. I was actually at the Public Service Commission meeting when the idea came up to put it out. I would say, why did it take so long? But that's all right. And unfortunately, it is driving cost to us. I just had an opportunity to visit Plant Vogel last year. We're going through quite the engineering effort to try and contain the old spent fuel rods that we have. Currently, they're in a pool, and then when they've hit a certain life of decay, they're trying to move them out into another area. And so they're basically sitting outside, decaying away safely, I would like to add, but decaying away when they could be stored more appropriately. And the federal government really needs to step up and work. It is an interstate transportation issue, I think.
I agree that Nevada is the best place for it. I think all the studies have shown that that the Yucca Mountain facility is probably the best place in the nation to store all this stuff. And if it wasn't for Harry Reid's NIMBY-ish tendencies, it would be there. But I think the more important question is this surcharge that we've been paying for a long time now, and hopefully it has been stopped. But talking with a lot of people in Georgia, they're also unhappy about the surcharge for the prepayment of the Plant Vogtle expansion here in Georgia, especially for Georgia Power customers. And it's all these surcharges at the bottom of the bill that people are unhappy paying. At least this is one that we've gotten rid of. I'd like to get rid of the other one as well.
Our next question involves somewhat similar. What role should burning wood waste or some form of what some call biomass play in Georgia's energy portfolio, and what obstacles does this fuel face in your judgment?
I think it should take a more significant role. There's a University of Georgia study that came out back in 2007 that I alluded to in my opening statements, where it talked about the number of products that can be used from a biomass standpoint that were cheaper than natural gas. I'd mentioned there were 10 earlier. There's 10 today. There's 12 when this study was done. 2 of them have, because of the decrease in the price of gas, you can say probably aren't needed at this point in time. The problem with this study is the study looks at a power generation aspect too. So if you go out and look at the study, you'll find out that it'll say that it takes 10 cents costs you 10 cents a kilowatt hour to produce. I'm just interested in the fuel that comes off of it and how we can use it in our current infrastructure. And currently, we have a lot of things like pecan hulls that you can get $1.09 million parts per billion BTUs. Whereas natural gas today, the spot price was $4.53. So there are a lot of agricultural products that we don't really use that we consider waste: poultry litter, peanut hulls, wood residue, wood chips, that we can use a process to collect the gas off of it and use it in our current infrastructure today. And that is something I advocate heavily.
As a general matter, I think biofuels are a good thing. Specifically as to what your question is talking about, as far as mandating a certain percentage for the energy portfolio for the state, I think is a bad thing. I think when you get the Public Service Commission trying to pick winners and losers as to which energy that we're going to have is not a good thing. I think what the basis of the question is should it be 2% of our energy portfolio or 5%? That's what this is all about. All that does is give power to lobbyists, because all that will do is increase the pressure on the PSC to have a higher percentage of our energy portfolio devoted to biofuels. All that's going to do is have all the biofuels companies come up to Atlanta and take Mr. McDonald or whoever out to dinner. And
30 seconds. Yeah,
you can have it. And that's not appropriate. I think if biofuels are a good thing, then the market will allow for it.
You have 2 minutes instead of 90 seconds.
Thank you, sir. Folks, let's be realistic about it. Biomass is a technology that's come forth. We're in a wonderful state that we're the fastest growing pine trees in the nation. We've got plenty of wood products here. We take the refuge off of pine trees that go in for poles, etc., and they go into biomass. But what's the issue? The issue is making electricity from it and by generating steam. What is it? It costs. The EPA has so many environmental regulations on a biomass plant. It's a cost, and in order for us to certify a developer for a generation of electricity for biomass, we're going to make sure that it comes under the avoided cost of producing electricity. Now, it has been mentioned about mandates. Georgia Public Service Commission has not mandated any issue as far as solar or biomass in our generation system. The state legislature requires us to have an integrated resource plan that the power company presents to the Georgia Public Service Commission every 3 years. That's their plan for the next 20 years of generation. Do we just sit there and rubber stamp that? No, we don't. They did not have 1 kilowatt of solar power in the integrated resource plan last year. But when it left there, through my initiative, we had 25 525 megawatts of solar power, plus another 210 that was in biomass that wasn't being used, and 50 megawatts that I had generated 3 years ago that's operating today. In that plan, no mandates, no upward pressure on the ratepayer, no subsidies at all, and all that is coming in under 8 cents a kilowatt. It's good for Georgia.
This will be our final question submitted before we go on to questions from the panel. Before we go on to questions from the audience, we have one more question. The so-called free cell phones enjoyed by over 1 million Georgians represent an area of potential fraud and abuse, and fraud and abuse has been demonstrated. Do you have an opinion on what might be done to curb this abuse?
I'll have to say that in my experience as an attorney, I've actually dealt with this. I do a lot of representation in juvenile court. Being one of the younger attorneys when I first started, the judges kind of picked people to represent some of the poor folks whose children have been taken into defects as custody. And what I found out was that several of my clients when I first started would give me a cell phone number, and I'd write it down in the file, and I'd call them and try to get back in touch with them and be out of minutes, and they'd give me another number. And literally over time I would see that they'd have 7 different cell phone numbers. And I was kind of ignorant as to what was going on, and it was pretty much this Lifeline phone program. So it is a problem. You do have a lot of people that basically get one phone, they sign up for it, run out of minutes, or lose the phone, they go and sign up for it again. It's rife with fraud and abuse. I think, however, that the initiative that the PSC tried to do earlier this year, while their hearts are in the right place, and I think that it's a legitimate cause for concern, I think it's probably preempted by what the federal government does. And I don't think the state of Georgia really legally has a right to place extra restrictions on this program when basically Congress is the only place that can do it. I think the heart's in the right place, but I just don't think it's going to hold up in court.
Actually, the Federal Communication Commission is the one that has the responsibility on the Lifeline phone. And let me tell you, we at the commission, there were 3 of us on the commission that voted to put a $5 a month fee on the Lifeline, the free Obama phones that are out there. That's what they are. They're the Obama phones. And the reason we did that is because of the abuse. We had statistics showing 15 phones in one household. 15 phones. Now, if you are a landline consumer and you qualify for a Lifeline, you pay $5 a month. If you're in Taylor County where they don't have a cell tower or something, you pay $5 a month. So we put it on 3-2 was the vote at the commission. The federal court struck us down. But out of our action, the industry itself is coming around and they're purging their own records because they know we're coming back. They're purging their own records, and we are making a significant difference with that Lifeline phone that's free.
I think these gentlemen have pretty much summed it up. It's interesting. I worked for the phone company for 16 years, and doing these Lifeline phones at the house was something that we were mandated to do from the FCC. And then eventually it transitioned over to the cell phone. I always struggled with how that somehow became a natural right that a person have a cell phone. But it was a decision that was made many, many levels above us. I do applaud what the commission tried to do. It did shine a very distinctive light on the problem. Unfortunately, it's the kind of drum that has to continually be beaten to ensure that we finally get to a place where perhaps people could start to rein in some of these freebies that our government likes to give out.
We will now go to questions from the audience. Does anyone have a question to start out with? I see several. I'll bring the microphone so they'll hear you when you're asking the question.
How many can I ask? I have a couple of questions. One is this about the smart meters. Is there any way we can get something that doesn't emit radiation?
There's an option on smart meters. If you don't want a smart meter, you can pay $19 a month and continue to have your analog meter if you like. All the science on smart meters, the state of Georgia, all the EMCs, the Georgia Power Company, there's the science on it makes they are accurate. They save you money. They give you a lot of opportunities. And I know there are people that have said that they don't want one. And so we had to go through and see exactly what it would take in order to be able to let somebody have that option for a person to go out and read that meter every month, et cetera, et cetera. So the option is there, but yes, ma'am, there's an expense that goes with it.
I would say the expense is too high. It doesn't cost $20 to read a meter. You know, if you don't want a smart meter at your house because you're concerned about the RF, I certainly understand. It is your property. It is your house. However, there is an expense associated with a person because today with the RF meters, they could just drive up your street and collect the charges. There's another issue with smart meters out there that people are concerned about, and that's Big Brother actually being able to see what is done in the house. That's a little out to the future. It's not really there yet, but it is out in the future. I would say this, I'm not a person who's against solar. I believe that there's a niche for solar, and that niche is for peak offset. And if you want to really bring solar in, the best way to do it is allow for a variable rate for a person who has a smart meter so that they're paying the true cost of power at the time it's used. Because power at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in August is more expensive to produce than power at 3 o'clock in the morning in August. So that's certainly one way to go. So I'm not necessarily against them. I think the charge is exceptionally, it's penalizing.
I don't necessarily have a problem with the smart meters. I think that it is something that makes it more efficient to collect the data, and the opt-out is a good thing. I would also kind of question the $19 whether that is the actual cost of sending someone out to a home each month to read the meter. But no, I don't have a problem with the smart meter.
Next question.
Gentlemen, I wonder if you could give us just a short, 1 or 2 minute tutorial on solar. It would seem to be a great thing, free power, the sun, but it haven't seemed to take off like I thought technology might allow it to. So could you help explain it to us? I don't get it, and I'd like to know a little more why solar would be a good thing and how it might help us.
Well, certainly solar is not free. We can only produce it today for about 9.5 cents a kilowatt hour, and that's with a lot of government subsidies behind it. Solar, the other problem with solar is it only really works when the sun's out, and the sun's only out 12 hours a day. And we only have 112 days of actually cloudless skies in Georgia. So you have an issue with solar as far as the actual amount that it puts out as being a consistent load as well. So to some extent, I say the best solar that we have in Georgia is the products that come out of our ground. Because those things, plants, they collect the sun's energy, they store it for us, so you don't need batteries, you don't need anything to supplement it, you don't need anything to carry it through the night. That is the absolute best solar out there, is what God produced for us already. And I think that's the actual best way to go. Other than that, any other type of solar initiative is the only way it's going to be profitable at any time in the near future is with continued government subsidies.
I have a couple of clients of mine who use solar for their businesses, and they're actually very well pleased with how it's been. Fortunately for them, they actually had the money up front to purchase the materials and the installation for the solar panels. The biggest policy problem I see right now with solar power is that it's actually against the law to lease out solar panels. You have to actually purchase them up front. I think there was a bill in the legislature this past session that would have allowed individuals to lease solar panels, but it got nixed at the tail end there. That's something that I'd like to see. I think that would bring down the cost and actually help people finance solar panels rather than purchase them outright.
Solar is the wave of our future. If you look at a study by Arizona University, Georgia is in the top 5 states in the nation in receiving electrons from the sun. Now, Does the sun shine through clouds? Why do you put sunscreen on when you go to the beach and it's a cloudy day? Those electrons are coming right through there. Solar is not a baseload generation. Solar is there when the sun's shining brightly, when it's producing it, and we use that as a peak power contract with our utilities. And what that means is that we can't build enough generation plants, coal, nuclear, combined cycle natural gas, to handle the peak load every time. This restaurant can't put enough food out to handle the peak. If everybody in Coweta County comes in here at one time, they're not going to, they're going to have to bring in somebody else to help show it up. That's what peak power contracts are for. And when you buy it on the spot market, you sometimes will have to pay $1 plus a kilowatt for that product when you're selling it for 10 to 16 cents a kilowatt. Technology has brought the price of solar down significantly as the technology has gone up in the last 3 years. The last 3 years. We had 337 developers sign up just 2 weeks ago in Georgia for contracts to deploy a solar array in our state for peak power contracts. Solar is not the base load, but solar, when the technology develops to be able to store electricity, that's when it's going to really pay us dividends.
I know nothing about electricity except the bill that I get every month. But the question I have, and I'm assuming you might know something about this, everything seems to be coming down from the federal government. You know, the federal government is just pushing us further and further and further. If we can get away from the federal government, or is there an opportunity to get away from federal subsidies, that we could be a little bit more free in the things that we do or say or want to do in the state of Georgia?
The short answer is no, unfortunately. If the federal government implements a policy, the state pretty much has to follow it. We can't nullify it. We can't do our own thing. In fact, I've come across that a lot here, speaking to groups. There seems to be a core part of our party that thinks that if we don't like a policy that the federal government does, then we just can ignore it. Being an attorney, I can tell you that's not what the law is, and that's not what the courts will uphold. Unfortunately, we'll have to follow the law as the federal government sets down. Now, that doesn't mean that there's other avenues that we can pursue outside of what the federal government has already done. But that's why I was saying earlier about the decisions that the federal government's done on coal is a bad thing. I like our coal power plants. Unfortunately, we're having to shut them down based on what the federal government's doing. Our only recourse as far as that is we need new leadership at the federal level. We need to actually elect a president who's on our side and keep a Congress that's on our side. But no, the short answer is no. I don't think we can nullify anything that's coming down from Washington.
Ma'am, one of my gentlemen up here talked about wanting to reduce the price of electricity, and nobody would like that any better than I am a consumer. I have a business that uses that my power bill's between $1,600 and $2,000 a month. I'm not active in it, I don't manage it, but it uses a lot of electricity. It's a funeral home, and we have to run the air conditioners. But let me tell you this. The last rate case we had last year with the power company, 60% of that rate case was mandates by the EPA. 60%. The power company can't do anything about it. We at the commission can't do anything about it. We have to absorb those costs. The other part of it, the basic part of it, was for M&O, maintenance and operations. We had one of the coldest winters we've had, and the trees fell on the lines and everything. But you know what? In all that time, with our gas company and with the electric company, we supplied 99% of the energy for the people of the state of Georgia. Now, you can't get those folks to climb those poles when ice is all over the trees. We have to have some cost increases to keep those good people at work, to keep our electricity on and the heat on in our house. These are responsibilities that I have as a Georgia Public Service Commission. I am going to meet those responsibilities so that we have reliable, affordable, and clean energy in our state.
We are on an integrated power grid. So electrons that are produced here in Georgia could end up anywhere in the southeast for the most part. So there is an interstate issue here. So there is something to be said about the federal government having some oversight. Unfortunately, that oversight has gone way too far. I believe Mr. Kidd was right that we need to work as citizens to try and redefine some of the things that the EPD, EPA, and everybody else are doing to us. The war on coal has got to go. It is one of the cheapest sources of power there is, and it's a gift I think God gave us that is going to be basically wasted because it's going to become priced out of what our consumers can afford. So I'm because of regulation, yeah. Because of regulation. So that being said, and I can't see the sign, but that being said, it's difficult for us as a local community because we can only push back through the ballot box.
We'll take one more question, and then we have a few more written ones.
My question is about the phone, the fees and the cost of phone. I have a 93-year-old grandmother who's paying almost $90 a month to have a landline because she can't work a cell phone, and it doesn't appear to be any, and she doesn't want an Obama phone. What is there any way that the phone company doesn't appear to have a discount or anything for our senior citizens? Do you know of a way that we can help?
Most of telecom's been deregulated, and that to some extent is unfortunate. We felt like at the time that we were deregulating because more competition was going to come in. I can tell you that the cost, the barrier to entry is in the telecom market is the cost of lines, cost of equipment, switch gear, property, electronics. And it becomes a significant barrier to entry. So there really hasn't been any true competition out there. And that has allowed some unchecked price move. Now, cable is trying to make a push into the space. I think they will be able to. Broadband, I'm a big believer in using the Universal Access Fund. We can't do it today, but to work with the state legislature to allow us to use the Universal Access Fund to do some things to subsidize seniors, low income. Certainly, I believe it should be used for broadband. I think if we get better access to broadband, that brings in the ability to use voice over IP and a lot of other technical solutions that'll help bring down, hopefully, the price of our basic landline for everybody.
I think your question pretty much highlights the way that the telephone market is moving. I think certainly in my lifetime and in yours as well, we probably won't even see landlines as, they'll be there, of course, but it will definitely not be the most prevalent way to call people. In fact, it's not already. I think we are moving towards the mobile phones. And I think as far as your mother, I think it is something that maybe we should move her towards a mobile phone. I know it's something that you said that she doesn't want to do, but I really don't see the benefit in her keeping that landline phone.
Ma'am, there are programs that are available for seniors and for even individuals. Where I live, I'm on Windstream, and of course, it was stated that the telecom industry has been deregulated by Congress and then the Georgia legislature. But there are programs, for instance, on Windstream, and I think I'm correct on this. I can have a landline, and I can have all the incoming calls that I want to have at a very nominal fee a month, $16 to $20 a month, and then I pay 10 cents a minute when I call out. So there are options out there for seniors. There are options out there. Now you get, you're just going to have to check with your provider or call your Georgia Public Service Commission, and we'll be glad to assist you with that.
I want to thank the candidates for sticking, almost all of you sticking to the time, and a lot of you going under time so we could get more questions in. We have a question here regarding the election of the Public Service Commissioners. This is a question to get your thoughts on. Georgia is currently one of only 12 states that elects their Public Service Commissioners. Why, in your judgment, is this better than a system where the commissioners are appointed?
I think pretty much every position should be elected. I think that when people are elected and have to stand for local or for office, it keeps them more accountable to the people. And I trust people at the ballot box more than I trust a governor or a state legislature to appoint somebody to an office. Because when you allow somebody to appoint our elected officials, it becomes, did they know them from college? Did they know them from, their golf outings? It becomes a good old boy system. At least with elections, people actually have to stand up and share their ideas, and the people get to decide. So no, I'm not in favor of taking that right away from people and put it in the hands of politicians.
I strongly support the elected process. I serve with my friends in other states that are elected by a legislative body or appointed by the governor. And in my initiatives that I've been able to do at the Georgia Public Service Commission, they'll come up to me and say, Bubba, I just don't have the ability to do what you've done in Georgia with that, because I can't go talk to my governor and interfere with what he's done because I'm appointed by him. Yes, ma'am, it is a great way to, the question is, we're good, and it's good, and I'm responsible to you as all of us would be in this office, and we don't need to be appointed.
I've had the opportunity as a county commissioner to see both sides of it. I have the opportunity to appoint people to boards. I have seen some of my fellow commissioners appoint people to some very important boards, like the tax assessors board, and the person really had no idea. It was a campaign quid pro quo, and I'm a strong advocate of the ballot box, and I believe that people, when they take the responsibility to go out and research who the right people are going to put the right person in there. It doesn't always happen, but I'm a big believer that that's what normally would happen. So I think that we're in a better situation in Georgia because we do get a chance to be accountable to the citizenry.
Got time for one or two more questions?
I don't want you to think I'm a smart mouth, but as I've been sitting here listening, and I have very little knowledge, but my question is, I don't understand the difference between what a public service commissioner is from a lobbyist. And tell me how you're going to represent us rather than the people that that we give our money to.
The question is, how can we be sure that you will represent us and not Georgia Power, basically?
Well, I'd be glad to answer that question because all I ask you to do is look at my record. I have a record, and we can talk about lobbyists and the way the newspapers act to them. Hey, ma'am, I play golf, and I play golf with lobbyist friends sometimes, and I go hunting, and I hunt with lobbyist friends sometimes. And when my son goes hunting with me with a lobbyist friend, I'm accounted for his fees for hunting as well as mine. But let me tell you where ethics are. Ethics are right here in the heart. You can put all the ethics you want to on paper, but if they are not in the heart. I served 20 years in the Georgia House of Representatives, and I said I had two major successes in that 20 years, even though I chaired the Appropriations Committee, overlooked the state budget for 8 years. I chaired the Industry Committee that looked after all utility legislation when Plant Vogel 1 and 2 were being built. But my 20 years of success. I had a small business when I went there. I went home with that small business that had grown and was still profitable. And I went there with my wife, Sonny, and went home with my wife, Sonny, because the ethics and my discipline was in my heart. That's where it stood. And information comes from people that with information. I don't know everything. I have to utilize people, just as I listen to consumers that call me and say, Bubba, you know, I think this ought to be for solar. I think this ought to be for coal. I think we listen. We that's our job to do, is to listen, and that's my pitch on that.
I think that there are two things. The first one is it's important to put a person in there who has some ideas that you are voting on. Because if you vote for an empty vessel, the easiest people to fill that vessel are going to be the lobbyists, because they're the ones there. They're the ones that are paid to be there every single day. So they're basically rubbing elbows with you. So I would first say go find the person who has ideas, and they're not the empty vessel coming in. And the second thing, you need to find the person that's going to be accountable, the person that you're going to be able to reach. On the inside of my campaign material, that telephone number comes to this phone right here. I've had that number since these phones came in a bag. I'm not going to get rid of it if you elect me to be your public service commissioner. So if you hang on to that and I'm your public service commissioner, you'll be able to pick up that number and talk to me anytime you want. Because the only way I can vote for what you want is if we have a relationship together.
It's the Public Service Commission, not the Utility Commission. And I think that there's absolutely no legitimate reason to ever go to dinner with a lobbyist, to ever go for a golf outing with a lobbyist, to ever go on a trip with a lobbyist. You can talk to a lobbyist. You can do it at the office for free, in the conference room where there's staff there. They can help you brainstorm and come up with ideas and listen to the lobbyist's pitch. That's fine. But there's no reason to go out on somebody else's dime outside the office. And I think the main problem we've heard is in the phrase lobbyist friend. Commissioners sit on the Public Service Commission to regulate the utilities. The fact that the utilities have hired someone that is your friend to lobby you, that's the main problem. That makes that explanation makes it worse, not better. I don't want to badmouth lobbyists. I mean, we all have a First Amendment right to lobby the government. If all of us in this room had an issue we cared about, we could pull our money together and hire a lobbyist, and they could go lobby the legislature. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is problems with them going out and getting access that we can't get. And they do that when they can take them away from the legislature or from the PSC office out to a steakhouse or out to a golf course or out to somewhere else that we can't keep tabs on them. I don't want the PSC to do that. I would like an outright ban on any contact outside of the office. It's just not right. We can't get that access. Georgia Power shouldn't either.
Have time for one more question.
Thank you. I was wondering what makes each of you personally more deserving of our trust over the next 6 years, it's a long term, than the people sitting next to you.
I can't. We really don't know each other very well, so it's difficult to say. All I really can speak for is myself and the fact that I'm bringing to this race what I believe are ideas that fit the right side of the equation. I'm trying to find solutions that work with our current infrastructure to try and keep our prices low. And I'm trying to bring those ideas in because what I have seen in the past are ideas that are going to cause our rates to go up in the future. And frankly, I have high enough rates now. I don't want them to go up in the future. So all I can say is trust in the ideas that we bring and not necessarily the individual, because I'm going to be accountable to you, but I don't know these guys really well enough to speak to them.
I think both of the gentlemen up here with me are fine gentlemen. In fact, the problems that I pointed out tonight, it's not personal. In fact, I think Mr. McDonald has served this state with honor and integrity for close to four decades. He's been in the state house for a long time. So the problems that I describe are not singled out by Mr. McDonald. He's just playing the game the way the game's played. Everybody in Atlanta does it the way Mr. McDonald does. And I think it just needs to change. We talk about ethics. I've heard it in several election cycles here in the Republican primary. We talk about it a lot. But we keep electing the same old people with the same old problems. If you want change, if you really do mean ethics changes, vote that way. You know, the people in Atlanta aren't bad people. They're not crooks for the most part. It's just the way the game's changed. You need to elect people up there that are completely different than the folks that are there right now. On a personal level, I don't play golf, so you can't buy me that way. And honestly, I just don't want to go to dinner with anybody. I'm an attorney, and the way that we do it in the court system, the PSC is like a judge. They hear evidence, they hear from the utilities, they hear from the people who intervene in the cases, and they hear the evidence and they decide which way or the other, who should win or should lose, or where it should be. Judges do the same thing. They hear evidence from one side and they hear evidence from the other, and they come down with a decision. The way that we do it in the legal system is the judges can never actually talk to one side or the other without that other side being present. I'd like to see that being brought to the PSC. If you're going to have a conversation with one side, have a conversation with everybody and do it at the office.
That's what we need is more lawyers. Goodness gracious. Yeah, you know, I take issue with the word buy. I take issue with that because I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, this commissioner can't be bought. Number one, fortunately, in my adult life, as a county commissioner, as a state legislator, as president of Georgians for Better Transportation, as president of the McDonald and Son Funeral Home in Cumming in Dahlonega, Georgia, serving people. I've been in an industry in the retail side that service has been what has made me successful in my business career. And that's my goal here at the commission. For your information, I'm 75 years young. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I'm not through yet. I am completely committed to making sure that my grandchildren, when they are 35 and 40 years old, can say, you know, Poppy was on the Georgia Public Service Commission, and because of some of his efforts with nuclear energy, with solar energy, with biomass energy, we still today have clean, affordable electricity and reliable. Ladies and gentlemen, the price of electricity will go up just like gas was, and 6 years ago was $1.90 a gallon, and today it's $3.63. The newspaper was 25 cents, and today it's 75 cents to $1. We're in that world, and we got to live in that world. But we can live and make decisions that can afford us to have the light when we want to turn it on, and as affordable as we can have it. Now, we have programs that there for seniors and people that are having a hard time, and they are out there for it. But it's not free. It won't be free tomorrow, and none of us up here can make that change that will make things just get free down the road. It won't happen.
For the closing statements, we'll move on to closing statements for a 2-minute closing statement from the candidates, and we'll begin at this end and work our way back.
Well, I wanted to thank y'all for having us out tonight. It's been a pleasure to speak to all y'all, and it's been a pleasure, Mr. McDonald and Mr. Lutz, to share the table with y'all. I've had a good time up here, and I hope y'all have too. This is an important election. It's an election that if we mean to bring about change, we can bring about change. We have a clear choice in this election. We can elect somebody that's been in the office for 2 different stints for up to a decade, and you know his record. It's not going to change in a new term. He's going to continue to do what he's been doing, and he's standing on that record. But if you want somebody that's going to commit to not going out to dinner with lobbyists, not going out to golf courses, and not going on paid trips, then I'm somebody that you should consider. I promise that I will not do that. I will not meet with any lobbyist outside the Public Service Commission. If you also believe that you can elect somebody that's just not going to throw his hands up and say, well, prices are rising, there's nothing we can do about it, that's just the way things are, I think I'm your man. I believe that the PSC has an ability to set the power rates at a reasonable level while also ensuring Georgia Power of being a stable company. Georgia Power is one of the best companies in this state. It's very successful. And like I said earlier, they're guaranteed a rate of return of 10.95%. That's pretty good. It's also the second highest in the Southeast. I think there's a little room there that the next rate case that comes up, that we can actually look to return some savings back to consumers. I think that there's something that we can do there. And so I would be that candidate. So there is a clear choice in this election, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us tonight. It's a real pleasure, and I hope that if there are follow-up questions that you have of me, that you will call the office or call me personally. It'd be perfectly all right. I want to just touch on a couple of things. Number one, remember, I started the solar program 3 years ago. There's a 30-megawatt program running 45 miles east of Atlanta. 220 acres of solar array, 126,000 panels that was due to go online with Georgia Power as a PPA contract in June of 15. That array has been producing power since February of this year. It's working well, and it's beautiful. It's the largest single array of solar in the southeastern United States. And when we talk about the tomorrows, I don't know what the price of coal is going to be if we can even burn coal the way EPA is doing it for us now. I don't know what the price of natural gas is going to be 6 months from now or 6 years from now. Horizontal drilling or fracking, whichever you want to use, is being attacked now by environmentalists, saying that it's erupting the water table, it's going to this. So that case is not over yet. There are a lot of lawyers involved in making cases for that particular situation. And I don't know what the price of gas is going to be 6 months or 6 years from now. It's a commodity. I know one thing. That sun will be shining 6 years or 60 years from now. And if it's not, it doesn't make any difference. And there are no solar subsidies in Georgia. There have been no mandates in Georgia. And the only subsidy for solar is a 30% tax credit by the federal government that expires in 2016. Thank you for letting us be here tonight. It's a real pleasure, and I look forward to serving you on the Georgia Public Service Commission. Thank you.
I too would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I think you're doing a great service to our state by being here to try and get informed about what's on your Public Service Commission. And I'm just going to start by saying, you know, in my household, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. The commission approved a motion that Georgia Power include in its IRP an additional 520 megawatts of new solar generation. That's a mandate. Your power bill is going to go up because of that mandate. Solar power is not, it's more than twice as expensive as the power we're producing today, and we already have a surplus of power today. Your power bill is going to go up. Vogtle 3 and 4 are going to come online. Your power bill is going to go up. If we don't deal with the fuel situation in our current infrastructure, that is the only way we're going to be able to keep reliable power going forward. The University of Georgia in 2007 gave us 10 products grown here in Georgia today that we can convert to fuel and use in our existing infrastructure. That's adding to supply of fuel. That's putting a more certainty in the market. Because like we said, the sun is going to continue to shine, and it's going to continue to grow things. I'd like to say in closing, if you'd like to know more, please take my brochure, call me. That is my cell phone number. Test me on it. Person from Macon-Bibb County did that the other day, and they were actually shocked I answered. So please call me. If you have any questions, visit my website, lutzforpsc.com, and please vote for me on May 20th. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Let's give the candidates a hand for joining us tonight.